When was the last time you felt ready to do something scary? I'm going to go out on a limb and say never, right? This week, I'm talking with Eddy Smits, a motivational speaker and communication and leadership expert, about getting out of our comfort zones. Because we're never going to feel ready, we just have to do it, which he likens to jumping right into the pool rather than slowly getting wet. Having been a school teacher and a hospital clown in previous careers, Eddy shares powerful insights about what we can learn from children and childhood. We also talk about resisting the urge to conform, embracing our authentic selves, and treating life with more playfulness. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Files. My name is Kim Meninger, and as an executive coach and former high-tech leader, my personal mission is to help professionals overcome imposter syndrome so that you can advance your career with confidence. Each week, I interview a new guest who brings a powerful perspective to this conversation, including personal stories, best practices, and new insights. The more we talk about this issue, the more we destigmatize imposter syndrome, recognize that we're not alone, and empower ourselves to access the tools and resources that can help us and those around us. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing with others you think would benefit from this conversation. Welcome, Eddy. It is wonderful to talk with you today, and I would love to start by inviting you to introduce yourself.
I will do that. Thank you for the invite to start with. So I'm Eddy Smits from Belgium. I am actually a teacher by study, so I that was late 80s. And then I found out real quick that I love to work with children, but I didn't like the structure of school, how everything worked. For me, there wasn't enough creativity. I couldn't get away with my creativity actually, and it really stopped me from doing my thing. And so I did a few other jobs, not very important, just 9 to 5 jobs. And then at some point, I got the opportunity to work for Center Parks, which is a holiday center. And I came in contact with artists there, right? And that triggered me. And at the same time, there was like a Belgian clown here on television who had a program. And I could see how that figure of a clown attracted children, right? And that was something I was looking for. Because in that period, I was already playing puppet theater. I had my own puppet theater company, but puppet theater was a little bit on the decline back then, and I really wanted to do something that I could make my living off. Not that clowning would be that easy to do, but anyway, the figure of the clown intrigued me. I went out and get some information, that time without the internet, so I visited the library, did my research, and I started to take my first steps into clowning. Started with like a birthday party for kids, and it grew until I had a nice thing going. And then at some point, they asked me to perform for sick children in hospitals, which was a really cool challenge, I thought. So I said yes, and I did that for 10 years, actually. So I visited more than 10,000 palliative and sick children in these 10 years. And that period was like, for me, is still the foundation of what I'm doing now. So what I learned there, the insights I got in life, in people, in business, everything actually. I learned so much during that 10 years. I also wrote a book about that. It's called Model C. And that was also the beginning of my, let's say, my career in personal development. Because in 2015, I stopped performing, and 2018, I started coaching stuff. That the years in between was merely finding out what I wanted to do, following courses, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also had a little bit of a burnout, maybe even a big one. But I crawled out of that and coached a lot also during COVID, coached very much doing a lot during COVID online. Yeah, that was the only way to do. But at some point, I missed the stage. I missed the stage so much. I was always on stage as a performer. And so I did a TED Talk, got that opportunity, did that TED Talk, and that launched me actually to do more of that work, more keynote speeches, more inspiring people. And since then, I'm doing that. And I started a new business also, which will go online in January, but it's in Dutch, so it's for Belgium and Holland, which will be around leadership, which is also the topic of my TED Talk. So that's it, briefly.
Such an interesting, I can see how there are some common threads, but on the face of it, it is so interesting to think of you going from being a teacher to then having these 9 to 5 jobs to then being a clown to then being a coach, right?
Yeah.
So when you look back on your career path, does it make sense to you? Like, how do you put all those pieces together?
It does make sense, and sometimes in a very funny way. I always try to follow my passion, and I always try to do the things that were necessary to get me to the next stage. I remember when I thought about the idea of being a clown, I knew nothing about it. So the first thing I was go look for big shoes, right? I thought that, I mean, yeah, for me that was the first thing I had to have. Then the second thing, they had all this makeup, clown makeup. So I followed the course in that. Then I followed the course in body language, etc., etc. So I always followed my passion. Always looked, okay, what do I need to get to the next level in my business, or what do I want, um, like in an artist way, artistically. It was always the balance, right? You had to be artistically, you had to grow, but also your business had to grow because it was my living, it was my earning. So I had to constantly balance between those two. And I think everything I did at some point is important for what I do now. I remember the beginning of my artist career. I didn't have any gigs, so I worked as a waiter. But that experience was so valuable because you know to learn people, right? You know to learn how they react on you, what you say. You learn to reply with humor if they are not very happy, or if they are like, or you learn to smile to them if they are like with a face like that, right? Which cheers them up. You interact with the children. So I think everything that I did had some kind of purpose, sometimes very intentional, but other times, yeah, it was necessary to do these things, and I did them. I also that was not so long ago that I really had to find a 9 to 5 job again. You know, the income was after COVID, it was a disaster. But because during COVID, I was online, I had my jobs, and then COVID was over, and everybody wanted me back live. But I was in Nigeria at that moment, so my clients in Belgium or wherever they were, I mean, so I had to take a 9 to 5 job again. But you know, seeing back on that job, it taught me so much about leadership again, that on which I was doing already that TED talk, and that drove me along further. So yeah, I try to follow my gut. I try to follow my passion, and that has led me so far. That has only brought me good things.
And when you talk about making these kinds of transitions, they can also feel really scary. Like, how did
Yes.
self-doubt play in, if at all, in your journey?
There's always self-doubt. I think every artist knows that feeling just before he goes on stage. There's a lot of nerves, a lot of uncertainty. I remember the times when we had new plays where we had to learn our lyrics, and doubted, oh my God, are we going to forget things and stuff? And I found out that the best thing to overcome that imposter syndrome is just do it. That's the best thing. And I know that takes nerves, but It's like I always compare it with if you go swimming and it's nice weather but it's early in the season and the water is still a little bit cold. You see these people touching with their hands and their feet and they go, ooh, it's cold, cold, cold. So they don't jump in at the end of the day. So the best thing there is, I call it the swimming pool technique, right? The best thing there is just jump in. You can't turn back in the middle of your jump, right? And yeah, that's what I can advise people. Just jump in. You're never ready. You must consider that you are never ready. If you want to write a book, you never think it's finished. If in our days, if you write a play, we never thought it was good. If you have a relationship, you never think it's good, etc., etc., etc. Or into going into a relationship, and the only know to really discover if it works is to jump in. I think it's the only way. And sometimes you have to immediately steer back, or let's say the water is really too cold. Yeah, then you jump out again. Yeah, nothing happened, right? You're not dead. You're just cold, right? And then that's the same in business. Sometimes things work. I remember we developed a play that cost us like 15 to 20,000 euro, which is comparable with dollars in the days, and we couldn't even get the costs back. And then another play I made for like $300-400, and it was one of my best plays that I ever did. So you never know in advantage how is it going to turn out. But you must take the jump, and if you believe in it and if you are passionate about it, even when you fail, there's always so much to learn, and it will get you to the next stage.
Oh, you said so many great things there. I think the the swimming pool analogy is such a good one
Mm,
because we've all been there. We've all seen it with my
yeah,
kids too, right? It's like
yeah, the
you're
same.
you're prolonging the agony by
Yes.
going in baby steps at a time, right?
Yeah,
And just
but if you look at kids, they are better in it. They throw out their clothes and they run to the pool and they just jump in, right? They don't care if they have no sunscreen on, or they don't even think about, is this water going to be cold? They just jump in. So we
true.
can learn a lot of them about life in general, and that's also what I did, right? I learned a lot about life from kids. Yeah,
That's a really good point. And I'm a big believer that confidence follows action, just as you're describing.
yeah,
Like I love how you said you never feel ready because it's true.
yeah,
You're never
yeah.
going to feel ready until you do it and then you
Yes,
realize it didn't
yeah,
kill me,
absolutely.
right?
Yes. Absolutely. You only get confidence by doing things and evaluate them after it, and then you go further. If it's not okay, then it's not okay. You adjust. And when it's okay, you say hey, and you also go to the next one. Whether you succeed or not, you have to go to the next one anyway. So yeah, what's the point of having doubt actually? But it's very human. It's very human. Everybody has it.
You're right.
Um, yeah, everybody has it. I know. I can't come up the name anymore, but it's a very, maybe it will come. It's a famous performer. He still vomits before every
Wow.
single show. Yeah, because he's so nervous that
Wow.
he vomits, and every time again. And he has a career of like 25 years. He still does it. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Well, I once heard somebody say the only difference between anxiety and excitement is the story we tell ourselves because it's the same physiological experience. And so
exactly,
I think about
exactly,
that too when you're about to go on stage, you can
exactly.
interpret that as nervousness and fear and terror, right? Or you can experience it as excitement and anticipation too, right? Because if you didn't care, if you didn't have those feelings, you'd be probably like, you wouldn't be invested in it, right? So,
Absolutely. And one other thing, it's also for you is also interesting. There are only two natural fears that we have. It's the fear of sound and the fear of falling.
hmm,
That's the only two natural fears we have. All the others have been taught to us. These are the two natural ones. All the other ones are, we got them from our parents, our teachers, our friends, whatever. But these are the two real ones. All the rest is, yeah, we
oh,
learn them.
that's really interesting. Well, then
Yeah.
that suggests that we can unlearn them.
Absolutely. Of course. Everything we once learned, we can unlearn. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's also why little children are not afraid to do things and are not afraid to experiment, because they don't have that thought of they don't have these things that somebody told them, like be careful for this or be careful for that. They don't have that yet. That's also why they just do things. They are playing and they experiment, and they take something and it's hot. Oh yeah, oh that's hot. Okay, but anyway, let's go on. you know, and the older we get, the more that disappears. So our own experiences sometimes block us, and we assume that if we do something again, that it will have the same result. But that's not always the case. We have to really do it before we can be sure that it works or not. Um, there were so many plays we did, and it didn't work. And we said, oh, we're not going to do that again. And then at some point, we were at a place where we did the show before, and the guy said, why don't you do that piece anymore? That was hilarious. And we were like, what do you mean hilarious? Nobody laughed. Yeah, but it was so good. You have to really put it back in your show. And then I had something, okay, we'll do it again. And suddenly it worked. And so, I mean, sometimes it lays in stupid things sometimes. But if we don't do it, we don't know it. So, yeah.
well, I think that's a really good point too, is that we think we can predict the future when we
Yeah.
can't. And we are so limited by our imagination. And
Yes.
what you said too about play and experimentation is such a better way of approaching our risks or our fears, because you've said a few times now, which I really love, is make adjustments. We
Yeah.
cannot possibly predict what the outcome is going to be because we don't know all the different factors that are going to influence that outcome. But we do know that once we have that information, we can make informed decisions about what we tweak
Absolutely.
just on the other side, right?
Again, I compare it with a child who's trying to learn to how to walk, right? And it doesn't get him to him, and he falls and blah blah blah. But there's no doubt in his mind. There's no thing in his mind that says, "Oh, let me just stay and crawl."
Yeah.
Let me just crawl. I'm okay. Let me just crawl. It's not happening. And yet, as adults, we so often say, "Oh, let me just crawl." It's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. I often use that as a
Yeah,
way of demonstrating that we are born with a growth mindset, right? Otherwise, we would all just keep crawling and not walking.
exactly. I mean, if you see the progress we made in science over the say last 100 years, it's mind blowing. Huh? It's
Yeah.
mind blowing, and that's not by not trying things out. You have to try things out.
Well, and I think that's the fundamental challenge for so many of us, because we're really talking to high achievers who have very high
Yeah,
expectations of themselves, who put a lot of pressure on themselves. And the irony is that if you don't take these kinds of risks and you aren't willing to step outside of your comfort zone, you're only going to be ordinary because you're
yeah.
not giving yourself the space to create something new. You're
No, but nothing wrong with that. But that's fact.
right.
That's really a fact. Yeah, it's. I mean, and the thing is, we as people, we get stuck in our head so often, most of the time, and the more our society is evolving, the more we stay in our head. Look at children nowadays, right? They are on their iPads, and which is for me, it's in their head, right? Yeah, I'm a little bit older already, but we used to play outside in trees and alongside of the roads and these kind of things. They are not happening. They are still happening, but not as often. And there are children that don't have that anymore. They live in a city in an apartment and they play on their iPads, right? Even real contact with real children. Luckily, there's still school where they're going, so they have real contact with people. But it starts there, right? With children already there in their heads. And what I see now, especially with young children, they can't communicate anymore.
That's true.
Right? When we as a child and we were communicating and fighting with words even, and if we couldn't get the better of ourselves. Sometimes we even hit somebody, right? But it was all part of the game, right? But nowadays, I have a daughter. She's 30, right? And she, to get her on the phone is a challenge, right? You can text her and message her, but before she picks up, I need to let it ring three times, and then she says, "Oh, it's probably important. I'll pick up." Right? Otherwise, they are afraid of the verbal, especially the visual communication.
Yes.
And there's so much in that. There's so much value in that. There's so much, if you type a message or are you chatting with someone, there's no emotion to the text. We invented these emoticons, right? But that's not the same. That's like even the I can't even pronounce the word emoticons, right? Even they don't reflect what we actually do or say. It's just what we think we have to put there.
Yes.
We are looking to the body language, to the eyes, to tone of voice also, right? It all and we take that in unconsciously because we have learned it through our things, and that's going away. That's going away. And it's a pity.
It is.
And I think that's for my generation, that's something we need to learn and relearn, the younger generation. How do you communicate in a natural way and without looking down or whatever? Just be yourself, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes when I go on stage, and promoters sometimes have that, yeah, can you do anything about your accent? And my answer is always no. I can, but I won't, because this is me. I'm from Belgium. I am no native American or English speaker. If you want to, if you want somebody whose English is perfect, yeah, then book somebody else, but not me. You don't need to book me, right?
Mhm.
This is what I do. This is what I'm telling your audience, and you told me they want to hear something like that. If they can't see or hear through the accent, sorry, but then
You're
then
not
you
the
have
right person.
the wrong keynote speaker. Yeah, it's as
Yes.
simple as that.
You're absolutely right. And I want to go back just for a moment to what you were saying too about communication. It's so important. I think about this a lot with my two kids too, because my boys are 14 and 9. And my
Oh,
14-year-old, one of his closest friends lives 3 houses down from us, literally a 5-minute walk. And
yeah.
they only communicate on their computers. And when they were younger, they would go to each other's house. They didn't know how to play. They didn't know how to just free play, right? They would sit there on their computers next to each other. My husband would send them outside and they would just be lost. They didn't know what to do. And that, if you think about generations coming up behind us, or there are going to be a lot of insecurities around communicating in the workplace, around communicating in the broader world, because
It's
they're
already started, huh, Kim? It's already started. Yeah.
exactly. And so, you can see how we're already, many of us, prone to doubt ourselves when it comes to sharing an idea that feels like a risk, or maybe reaching out to somebody that we don't know. But then if you add that other layer, like you're describing, of just it's completely outside of your comfort zone and how you've grown up, it's going to trigger you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see how it evolves. But I think we cannot. And the more AI is going to evolve, the more we need human interaction. I'm not against AI. I can't judge about AI because I don't know anything about it. But what I can say is that the more that will evolve, the more we need counterbalance for that, and the more human touch we need to have with people, because otherwise, people need people. And I think most people experienced that during COVID. I mean, then my mother was still alive. She was in a care house on the first floor. I had to go downstairs with my phone in her hand and her on the phone like this to see her, right? But I needed that, right? What I missed that period is just that interhuman contact. I was so glad that I could go to a friend to say, yeah, come on, don't, we are going F them all, right? We are coming together. We are going to have a glass of wine together. And if we get COVID, yeah, then we get COVID, period, right? Because we needed that social contact. We needed this, not on the phone, not online. We needed yeah, I will practically say, smell each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because that's something that's missing. The touch is missing. But that are two sentences we are missing. Two of the six we are missing in
Mm.
what we are doing now. Yeah, if I think if your child comes with 4 out of 6, you say, it's okay, but 5 or 6 would be better, right? It's just more than half, and that's not enough. That's not enough to have a meaningful relationship with somebody. So yeah.
You're absolutely right. And I think just encouraging people to humanize their interactions with each other is important on so many levels, but also from a confidence perspective, you just feel more confident when you're with people that you know and trust. And you just, if everyone's a stranger, if everybody's just a being on the other side of the screen, you're not going to
Now,
feel safe with them.
no, now on the other hand, I really had also there were new friendship. I discovered new people, etc. So it is possible, but now it's a pity they are then from Australia and from all over the place. But there's someone from England too, and probably I'm going to meet her one of these days, right?
Mm.
Because you yearn for that real connection too. Yeah, you were in COVID, you were online every week with each other, but still you feel it's not enough. There has to be this last link has to be there to really connect. And yeah, it will get we will get there someday, right? So yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And just to go back for a second to what you were saying too about I'm not the right person for this. If you want somebody who's a native English speaker, I think that's
Yeah.
really important too, because I think sometimes we feel like we're defective in some way or that we're not good enough when in actuality, it's just not the right fit for us. And so if you can't change the fact that you're not a native English speaker, but that doesn't make you less than as a human, right?
Oh.
Just means that's not the right job for you.
You need to be authentic. And I always say the hardest thing to do is being yourself. It's the hardest thing there is. And it should be the most simple. But it is, and again, it's taken by us when we are a child. When you are a child and you drop a vase, right? You get a spanking, or you have to pay it out of your pocket, whatever, right? You get punished for that. If you say, "Oh, I was it," then you get punished. So next time you drop the vase and you brush all the glass under the table, and you do
Wasn't me.
nothing, right? Wasn't me. Wasn't me. So you learn to be not yourself. And the ones who are themselves say, "Oh, sorry, it was me." They are punished, right? They get punished. So authenticity is something that is so important. And the thing is, once you make that click, what happens then is that people will come up to you, and always the right people. That's the funny thing about it, And when you're not authentic, the wrong people will come up to you. But you think that you have the right people. And there's the bizarre thing, and there's the thing that goes often wrong is that you pretend to be somebody you are not. So it's if you think about it, it's not more than logical that you get the wrong people, right? And but again, it is very hard. Again, I wrote a post some months ago about that. The kids in school when we were young and fresh that had something special, like they dyed their hair red, or their clothes were out of the ordinary, right? We laughed for them, right? But
Hmm.
they were themselves. They were trying to find themselves. And what does society do? They laugh at them. We laugh at them, but the only thing that they are doing is they are looking for themselves, and they are clothing themselves like they feel, oh, I feel good with this. I feel good all in black. I feel good when I dye my hair red.
Mhm.
But we punish them. We punish them. We make fun of them. So what do? You have two possibilities. Or they get stronger and just continue to do that, and that's fine. Or they give up and they say, okay, I'll confirm to dyeing my hair again brown or whatever color, and I'll wear natural clothes, etc., etc.
Mm.
And you can't blame them, of course. We can't blame them if they don't have support, like from home or from their real friends. Then they will drop it. Huh? Then they will drop it. That's also what I say to people who have like 13, 40, 15 years old, right? They do crazy stuff. And the worst thing you can do is go into it. Let them do crazy stuff. Let them, that's experimenting. Let them, they learn so much, right? suppose your daughter or your son dyes his hair blue, right, tomorrow, and he comes out of the street. The first that day he will learn more than the past 10 years.
That's true. That's very true. No, you have
He learned so much. And at the end of the day, when he comes home, then you can say, "And how was your day?" But don't forbid him to do stupid. Of course, you have to forbid him to do dangerous things. That's
right.
something totally different, right? But dyeing your hair blue or something, these stupid things, or having an ear piercing, whatever, um, let them. They will learn so much. It's so valuable lesson that they get, and they won't even realize it that they're learning. So it's, yeah. That's what I recommend people who say, "Oh, my son's or my daughter is getting so difficult and she wants this and she wants that." Leave her. Just leave her. Say yes.
Yeah.
Daddy, I want to dye my hair blue. Go for it, girl. But mostly they won't ask.
No,
They'll just do it.
it's funny you should say that because my 14-year-old was just talking about, he said he and his friend want to shave their heads and dye their hair pink. And I was like,
Yeah.
why not? Your hair will
Go
grow
for it.
back, right?
Go for it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It will just grow back. I mean, what in a few weeks, everybody will be, yeah, it's gone again. So yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But you're right. That pressure to conform is so high and so
Yeah.
powerful. And then
Yeah.
that keeps us in this perpetual inauthenticity because we're trying to
Yes.
impress the wrong people, like you're saying. And then
Yes.
the longer that you're in that space, the more you have to be that person you're not in order to feel like you fit in. And it just increases the anxiety.
Exactly. Exactly. How longer you are in that inauthentic situation, how harder it is to get out of it.
Mhm.
It's normal. It's normal, right? You grow your friends, you grow your colleagues, whatever you work, and it's all not natural. But that has become your world, and to step out of that world, that takes a lot of courage. It's much easier to step out before all these things happen. It's much easier then, and that's many people are now in a situation that they feel, because it's a feeling, they feel that they don't that they can't get out of it, but you can get out of it. You can get out of everything, but of course maybe you need some help or some encouragement or whatever, right?
No, that's a really good point because I think maybe you find that the people you were trying to impress are not the people you thought they were, and you need to move to a different space. Or you might be surprised that people are
Yeah.
accept you for who you actually are, and that some of what you're feeling is just an assumption that you made, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, assumption is the enemy of progress, huh? It's like that. It's really simple. Yeah. If you're gonna assume things before you really try them out, yeah, well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then that takes us back to where we started too, right? With experimentation and just jumping right into the pool, right? If you assume.
yeah. And again, young people have the advantage on us, because they lack experience, and but yeah, let them fall, let them fail. There's no bigger reward than to fail. And I know that too out of my own experiences, whether it's in my artistic business or else. The lower I go, actually, the more I'm thinking, okay, that's good, because the lower I go, that means the higher I will go too.
Mm,
It's everything has to be in balance, right? And to say it in the words of a clown gets his success by failure, right? If you see the old black and white movies, when the clown stumbles, right, the audience laughs, but the stumble is in fact a fail, right? It's something that didn't work. And at some point he gets that and say, "Oh, wait a minute, when I stumble they are laughing. And it's my intention to make people laugh, so let's stumble, right? Let's make mistakes." And that's that playfulness, that let's make mistakes because mistakes are fun. If we can put that into young people, if we can that attitude into young people, I think that's one of the greatest things you can give them.
mm.
Let's have fun and fail.
Great lesson and a great place for us to wrap up today because I would love for everyone to think more about how to do that in their lives, no matter how old they are, because I think that is just a great way to give yourself more freedom to
Yeah,
have fun and not
absolutely.
be so, yeah, and not feel so much pressure. This has been so fantastic, Eddy. If anybody's interested in learning more about you, your work, where can they find you?
I think the easiest place just to go to my website, eddysmits.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the social media place where I'm mostly can be found. And if any, whatever it is, ask your question, get in touch, whatever. I'll get back to you. It's as simple as that.
Excellent. I'll make sure those links are in the show notes for anybody interested. And thank you again for being here, Eddy. This has been such a great conversation, and I really appreciate your insights.
It was totally my pleasure, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Impostor Syndrome Files. If you would like to continue this conversation in a safe and trusted space, I would love for you to join my virtual discussion group every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. For the past several years, the group has been limited to women, but it is now open, regardless of gender, to anyone who is interested in exploring and troubleshooting common workplace challenges, building better awareness of ourselves and others, and becoming more inclusive allies at work. Check out the show notes for more info on how to find us, and please join us next week for another episode of the Impostor Syndrome Files.